Good to go.
Um, Okay. Good morning, everyone. This is the Cannabis Committee meeting for August 25th, 2025. My name is Rich Tree. I'm the interim city manager. We can have a roll call. Vern?
Yeah. Vice Mayor McCurvey,
Here.
Councilmember Raymond Beltran.
Present. Fantastic. The next section of the agenda is oral communications. This is an opportunity to address the Cannabis Committee on any scheduled matter. Unless additional time is authorized by the committee, all commentary shall be limited to 3 minutes per individual and no more than 15 minutes total. Anyone from the public would like to speak on any of the items on the scheduled matter item? Seeing none, we'll move into scheduled matters. The first item on the agenda is approval of the draft minutes from February 28, 2025. The committee had a chance to review the draft minutes and like to provide any correction.
I'll make a motion to approve if there's any corrections.
And I'll second that.
Fantastic.
All in favor, say aye.
All in favor?
Motion passes 2-0.
Thanks, Vern. The second item for to be discussed today is a review of proposed amendments to the cannabis dispensary ordinances, and specifically ordinance number 1853 and 1854 to include micro business license type 12. This is a new type of license. I think the closest jurisdiction that has a micro business license is Exeter. I'm not sure, but
Yeah,
it was brought up as a request for consideration by one of the dispensaries. My understanding in a micro business, they're able to cultivate a limited number of product, package it, and
well, so what it is, a micro business can be a variety of things.
okay.
So, and I haven't put together anything yet because don't know what we're doing yet. So just a heads up. Okay, just want to make that clear. I was looking at the agenda, like, wait a minute, I don't have anything proposed yet because we need to talk about it first. But, okay, so under the California, well, under the act and then the regulations, a micro business is just a business that has, it can be a, like, sort of a small scale business that runs at least 3 different types of licenses. And so you have to go and apply to California to get that specific type of license, right? And so, and it can be tricky because you have to basically comply. Like if so it could be a number of things. It could be manufacturing, cultivating, and retailing, right? For instance, or it could be distributing, cultivating, and retail. Or it could be, so you can have it's just any combining 3, yeah, and it has to be at least 3. So it can't be, from what I understand, it can't be more, or it can't be any less, I guess. So, and I brought the regulation just because I know that, and it's really not, I mean, basically happens is that wherever it is comes to you, tells you what it is that they want, what those businesses are, what they want to do. Then they have to go and apply for the state, and then the state will require as a condition that we allow it. So we'd have to have, and we don't have it in our ordinances yet. We've only allowed, the city councils before have only allowed dispensaries, and we kind of waited. Now, I believe that when we did the taxation, we went ahead and potentially thought about taxation on other types preemptively when we took it to the voters, but we haven't done anything on actually permitting it. Yeah. So, because we didn't want to have to go back twice for that. So, as far as going to the voters. So, yeah. So you have to, at least 3. So you could have 3 or more. It could be more than that, but you have to have at least 3 different types of licenses. And it could be cultivation, manufacturing, distribution, and retail sale. Those are the types that are kind of generally allowed. So, and there are a couple that will qualify like help you kind of streamline with the state, but I don't know if they're applicable here because I think you either have to have a type N manufacturing or distributor transport only license, but I don't think those are in play here. So, yeah, so they have to go back and do that. So it's just a matter of whether or not, what's being proposed and whether or not the city council wants to allow it.
If we could hear, because that was kind of my dilemma, is I had reached out to other areas that I had a general sense of what it might be, but without knowing specifics, I didn't know what questions to ask or what to research. So if we could hear what those would be, and that would really help kind of understand what our ordinances or changes might be.
Really, is it appropriate?
Fine.
Would you like to speak on this?
The committee has the discretion to allow
Would you like
anybody.
to-
So what that would allow us to do is have to like up a 2,000 square foot grow in the same facility. And then it would allow us to what they call manufacturing, cut our grow, package it, and then sell it in our dispensary.
That's the other thing about a micro business, by the way, whatever you're doing has to be all for that one establishment. So
spot,
you
yeah.
can't cultivate and distribute to others and run a retail under the micro business.
It's all
Yeah.
in-house, kind of like a microbrewery or something like that. Yeah, well,
What
that,
that allows us to do too is also lower the cost of our product.
oh yeah, in-house, yeah.
It allows us to also, let's say if we wanted to buy in bulk, we could buy in bulk and we could package it ourselves in our own brand. Branding it ourselves.
Also, that would be aside from if you cultivate, you can also buy it as far as like packaging.
Yeah,
That's-
we
that's-
can buy in bulk and package it ourselves.
Is there a, Julie, I don't know if you know this, is there what the regulation is as far as square footage that's allowed? I mean, I imagine there's larger
I
farms.
don't off the top. It sounds like he might. Didn't say in the regulations specifically, I don't think.
Micro have a bigger group.
Yeah, it has to be pretty
Okay.
small.
Maybe a question for me, just for clarification for Julia, is in the example that Mr. Garrett shared as far as being able to, the desire to purchase in bulk and then repackaging it. You referenced that you would need to have 3 licenses to.
I don't know what repackaging qualifies for. I'm not a cannabis expert by any means. I mean, really, what it comes down to is if the state will grant a micro business license, then we can decide we're going to permit it as well within the local jurisdictions. So I don't know if that falls under packaging. It sounds like it might be a component of manufacturing, but I don't know.
Yeah.
That's what I would say.
It is, so they allow you, in a micro license, they allow you to have a storefront, and then they allow you to have, manufacturing, and they allow you to have a grow. So it's all has to be limited to one building.
Where are you in the process with those licenses? Because it's stated that needs to be approved by the state first. Have you already gone over those?
Well, the state is the easy process. We have to have permission from the city first to apply for
So
the
then you go
state.
there, okay.
Yeah, so it's really,
We'd have to
A city
permit it and then you have to
recommendation.
go and get it because, and it will. Hopefully it'd be easy. I don't know I know the one I had experience on the city attorney for Exeter and I kind of went through that process with them. It took that that licensee a long time to get the state to approve it. However, it wasn't exactly a conventional type business. It's very special, very different, kind of specialized, very different than what you see around here. It's more of it's really a medical geared to providing kind of small scale sort of medical treatments to people. And so they're doing, and I don't even know which all 3 licenses are, but they needed, they're basically compounding and developing and then providing to, and so I'm guessing it was probably manufacturing, distributing and retailing is what I guess. I don't think they're cultivating on site, but because it's such a small office, so I'm relatively certain they're not cultivating on site. But so I think that it was very specialized, and that might have been why it took a while for the state to kind of figure out how to provide the license to them.
I think that
So-
license would be a license where somebody's making a
It's
bakery. bakery goods, but.
It's not even a bakery, it's like they were doing apothecary type stuff, it's like,
Yeah.
it's very.
Some of them get pretty
Yeah.
complicated,
Yeah.
but this is the one that's real complicated, but some of the licenses get really in-depth, almost like scientific, you know.
So on the cultivation side, is that, and I don't want to mean this in a negative term, but is that like a loophole to buy the bulk manufacture, to buy the bulk and then package it yourself, or you actually will grow on site?
Well, we would have a small grow on site.
How much square footage is your facility?
It's, I think it's about 6,000 square feet. Well, we would have a small grow, probably like 2,000 square feet, 1,500 square feet. We wouldn't have a 5,000.
Yeah, I haven't been to your building, so I didn't know how much area you had for storefront and then also the cultivation side, like
Yeah.
how much space you had. So that helps.
About 2,000 square feet.
Okay.
Julian, those discussions, to your recollection, what did that do with the security? It was.
They would have to follow it,
Was there any
so
difference in
no.
that, or was it the same?
So well, actually, they may not be considered, I don't know if they're considered retail storefront. I'd have to find it. That's actually what governs it. So if you are running a retail micro business or a retail dispensary, that's what triggers the security requirements. So, so there's, and you can do it either employed or contracted, and there's actually two different code section or two different chapters of the business profession codes. That you have to follow one or the other, and it turns out that's because one is more basically privately contracted through a contractor, and the other one is a proprietary security where you hire your own security. So, and I don't, again, not an expert in this area, but you would just have to follow it. You know, what the statute says is you got to follow that, and it's absolutely required. There's no way around it. Because if you don't, then you're putting your state license in jeopardy.
So what specific, you said cut, grow, sell, was those the three,
Well, sir.
the three, requirements that are needed? Which ones are you asking for?
Well, we would
You
have
have sale already,
a small grow,
the growth,
what they would consider manufacturing.
manufacturing.
Right.
Which that grow has to be tested by the state and everything else.
And they'll still make like they'll evaluate your retail. It's not like I'm not sure exactly how the state does it, but it sounds to me like you basically have to, when you're doing a micro business, they reevaluate the whole thing to see if you're complying with everything you're supposed to be complying with.
Yeah.
How many of these things are there around in the area? Do you guys have any experience with that?
I've been to a couple towns in LA, but I don't think there is one in this area.
Wood Lake kind of toyed around with that. Didn't they have some grows or cultivation out? in the
Well, I know.
area?
They have a massive cultivation facility out
yeah.
there. but
I think
it's
that's the
separate.
closest area that has
Yeah, you could take,
that type of,
yeah, Valley Pier, they have their own, they have a retail, then they have a commercial grow, and then they also have manufacturing.
but not like you where it's all encompassed in one.
Right.
Yeah, theirs are all different locations. It also allows our company to be able to buy, like I said, once again, in bulk, which is better pricing to us, which is better pricing to the consumer.
Julia, you said that in the past, before I was on this committee, that you talked about the taxation and those things.
Yes, let me see. And I was gonna check that. And I got caught. I was actually looking at all the
And the
security.
assumption is that if we do the micro business, these are other layers of income for the city also, because there'll be taxation layers.
Yeah, I
And
mean,
they'll be
I
similar to what
believe
we
we've got
have.
it set up already. And so we would, I think we did almost, in fact, I know we did because we calculated potentially for cultivation is I think what we were thinking at the time. So I think we covered everything.
How many more employees do you think that you would be able to employ with expanding that type of operation?
I would say probably about 5, 6 more employees.
Cannabis tax, so.
Yeah, I was digging through my stuff to look for the financials because we have from all the dispensaries, kind of what the taxation is, and we can kind of estimate kind of what the overall sales are. I couldn't find mine.
Well, we get a lot of.
Finance person here, where the tax work or tax code stuff.
We get a lot of people that are still buying off the streets
Oh, yeah,
because cannabis is so expensive.
with all the taxation.
Our goal is to bring the price down. If you bring the price down, then we can solve a little bit of that problem, you know, not, never gonna solve it all, but gonna solve some of it, you know.
As far as my perspective is, I don't have big concerns with any of these. I mean, if they're all within what's allowed. Just personally, I like to dig in a little bit more as far as what that looks like, as far as taxation is a great point, as far as the economic growth. I like the additional for, you know, jobs or employment for the community. But just contacting some of the entities that have done this before, of any of the concerns that we haven't dealt with. The Cannabis Committee, I think, took a couple of years to kind of put the policies together. So maybe another month of reaching out to others to see kind of what their policies look like. Because I didn't know in general what you were asking for. It was kind of vague in our agenda. So I don't have any real red flags as far as concerns of how that's gonna go.
Yeah, I've been to, two of them down in Los Angeles. They let me walk through, explained everything to me that's in there. They run very smoothly, you know. I mean, really the only thing you're adding is the grow facility, which is about 2,000 square feet, which has to be, everything has to be kind of approved by the state. You know, if they come in and do an inspection, I mean, you better be up to code.
Sure.
And then security is, you know, it's cameras, basically the same security that we have. I mean, cameras, you have a security guard, you know, you have things like all that stuff. That has to be up to state code.
I think just for some of my understanding is, it seems like there's a lot of like, sometimes we can get into gray areas with stuff. And so just looking through to make sure some of the stuff that's stated is as factual, and then just going forward from there. I don't have any more real questions. I don't know, Mr. McCurdy.
No, I would echo those comments. I think it's something that if it adds jobs and adds a revenue stream, it's good for the city. It's highly regulated. Unless there are some gray areas that we need to discuss further, we could move it forward to the next meeting with a follow-up, I think. I mean, I know we were gonna cancel this meeting and dissolve this committee, but it sounds like we've got some more things to do here.
Well, it helps. It gives us something to work with, to understand kind of your direction and what you're looking for. And I think we're trying to be pro-business, be friendly. I know I voted against the move just because I didn't like the general area, but at the same time, I want to try to, since we went that way, to continue to work with making it successful. So, yeah.
So I just double checked. Yes, we did. And I thought we did. But so the tax is $25 per square foot, or 10% annual gross receipts, depending on the type. So in this with a micro business, you'd probably be doing a little bit of both. We probably charge per square foot on cultivation, but you would charge 10% on the other activities for gross receipts.
Is that 10% just on what comes from the cultivation, or is that an additional 10%?
Well,
So we would have the 7.
No, I don't think we would double. Well, I don't know. I can't speak for the council, but I would imagine that the way it would work, since, I mean, when we were doing it back then, they were kind of looking at as standalone facilities, right? So,
Right.
so cultivation's one thing, and your retail and your 10% on your sort of your business activities are another.
Right.
But if you're supplying to your own, which is the only thing you can do,
Right.
I think you probably would look at, it would be either or of a situation.
Okay.
So we would still charge for selling once you sell, but
Right.
you'd be charged on the 25 per square foot. Just
Okay.
you wouldn't also be charged
Yeah, I get what you're
10%.
saying.
You see what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
yeah.
So,
you guys really did a good job in the either or and anticipating.
well, we were trying to, right?
Right.
We were attempting to, because we didn't want to have to go back. We figured we wanted to go ahead and get the vote. If we were going to go to the voters with a tax, you wanted it to be applied to any types of businesses that the council might approve. Right.
Well, I like that this is local, and I like that we're adding jobs local and keeping it, unique to our city. And I've already expressed my feelings about this too. If it's a legitimate business, my personal feelings on this I have a lot of conflicts with the idea of this in general, but if it's a legitimate business and we're following the law and we're following the regulation, I say we move it forward.
So the other question I have is, so when we did the dispensaries, the council decided they wanted a limit on what that was. Something for the committee to think about is, are you wanting to allow this for example, do you want to allow this ability for the current ones that are there, like your 3 permits that you allow, but not necessarily open it up to additional? Are you wanting to open up to, if all those things have to also be, because when we do our changes to the ordinance, you're gonna want to be very clear about what it is you're permitting in terms of number and location and everything else. So we'll have all those other things to think about, and I just want to make sure you guys are thinking about that too.
Well, as we move it forward, my position already is that we would not add any more locations. We would keep the limits as they are. And I would want to look more closely at the idea of cultivation, because that's something we want to do in our downtown area, or something that would not be done in the downtown area. I don't know.
Well, if it's legal, it's legal.
Right.
That's, yeah, you can't.
You're talking about, excuse me, you guys talking about like grow facilities?
Allowing like Haven to then start growing and that, because right now it's not permitted. So if we allowed one, we'd have to allow all.
Right, but in the micro business though, I mean, I can tell you right now, they would have to find new locations. They don't have room.
But I'm just saying that opens a door if they want to. They
Yeah, if they wanted to,
Yeah.
yeah, we're not asking you to limit to us, yeah.
That brought up a good question. Was the 2 initial ones, well, the initial was medical, and then that kind of expanded to 2 dispensaries, then it went to 3. If I'm not mistaken, you guys have the medical one. Is that correct? The other 2, I think, are considered recreational.
No, ours is
No,
recreational.
Which one is
All
that?
3 do.
No, one of them was medical.
One of them in the beginning was medical, and
Oh,
they changed it.
we were-
That's okay.
So I don't think any of ours were ever medical. I think they were always applying for adult. I believe all the first 2 also were adult
Something
use.
highlighted me that the one
So,
was
well,
distinctive.
so the council wanted the ability to sort of reserve one of the 3 for a medical, and then just there was no the problem is the way the laws have changed, you just don't see that because it's really hard, frankly, to
You don't
make
make
money
money.
as a medical,
You don't
as a
make
medical one.
Don't make money with the same.
So, and frankly, those that are needing it for medical purposes are just going to the adult
Right.
use can't dispensaries anyways, because a lot of I mean, it's even it's still marketed for medicinal uses, even in the adult use.
Well,
type
what I'll get to is I didn't know if the
dispensaries.
medical license then almost automatically allowed cultivation, that type of stuff. I didn't
No,
know.
and that was exactly the problem that the guy had in Exeter, because they were wanting to do this medical thing.
Okay.
But there was no license to fit exactly what they were doing, and the only one that really truly kind of made sense was the micro business for what they were doing.
Well, that's a good discussion, because that's where my conflict is, because for the medical, I'm all for it, and the other, not so much. But that's outside of the purview of this committee and.
I mean, you guys could do that. You could revisit medical. I just don't think you're gonna get any interest in it. I mean, and it's still there. I believe it's still, I mean, we just don't have, we're maxed out on number right now, although, well, I
We
mean.
don't have any representatives from any.
We went back and forth. I'll have to go back and look at the exact wording, but it might be that there's still this ability to have a medical one.
Well,
Because-
I was hoping there would be a representative from the other ones, even if they don't have anything on the agenda, just to get their input. If they don't want to, then we can one off a license, and that's what goes to like the medical one. If there was a separation, then this one is allowed, the other ones.
We can definitely try to gauge their interest, see if they have any interest. at all.
That's fair.
So I didn't know if, again, if we want to bring this back in 1 month for our committee and then we'll kind of button it up and then pass it to council.
I think that's fair, because we need to explore it better before we bring it back to the council. We need to have good recommendations. So I agree with Councilman Beltran that we should look at this a little bit in more detail. Thank you for the input, Julie. I appreciate it. I think there's my opinion as we move forward, and I don't know, Ray, if you would agree with me, but I think we should keep our cap on 3, no matter what status it is. And there are some other things on the agenda that we can probably get through and go to the council with, but this was a new item, so I think we should keep talking about it.
Yeah, to your point, I believe it stated there, it's by population. So I don't know
Yeah.
in this committee if we want to adjust that to that it's not by population, it's by council's decision with, right now it's. Because it might automatically trigger if the population grows, the fourth license.
I don't know, while we're opening the hood, I think 30 is fine. I don't think the population change is going to change that.
Well, I'm just saying, if I don't know if that's the correction we want to make.
I agree with you.
You can go ahead and limit it so that you can, in the event.
Future councils can address it later, but
Right.
we would like to put a cap on that.
I agree with that.
If I could clarify, the recommendation from the committee is to bring this item back with more detail and recommendations, and also include revised language limiting this to 3 dispensaries only.
I got one.
I think the way I have it, and again, I didn't bring I should have brought the old. This is the new, but this is only a portion of what we've just recently amended, but I think it's actually still. I gave the council a lot of discretion to keep it less than the number, notwithstanding the population change. So just as a head, I believe it's not like this thing where you automatically have to allow one. You can still, I think you have that existing ability for what it's worth. Because I was concerned, I wanted to make sure that you guys had
So
discretion.
someone could still challenge it and we can still.
Right, so I think you can still say, hey, no, we authorize what we authorize, and we can authorize up to that many based on population, but you reserve the right not to. I'm almost,
Yeah,
90% sure that's what I did, because I wanted to give the council the most flexibility possible within that range. But you may want, that doesn't mean that you don't necessarily want to say, no, we're going to basically hard cap it at 3, which being said, and granted that the council would have to go and change the ordinance then, instead of just being able to exercise its discretion. So that's up to this council.
There's a question.
Yeah, I think what a lot of people don't realize is they think cannabis, big money. But let me tell you something, there's no money to be made in cannabis. It is a fine line. Me and my daughter haven't took a paycheck since the day we opened. I mean, it's just becoming a fine line just to make it a break even point. We're at that point now. I think if anything, especially for the city of Porterville, that we have 3 dispensaries now. And if somebody goes out of business, I think that should be it. I don't think we should allow more dispensaries to come in, because
So what
it's whoever's gonna survive is gonna survive. I tell you right now, there's nobody making money in the Canada. All we're doing is we're paying our bills and paying our taxes. And that's
Yeah, the
it.
trend and trajectory has completely changed since the trend and trajectory has completely changed, the whole landscape. I understand. I've read a little bit on this.
That's fine.
I think what you're doing is you're echoing what Julia said, is that we have the flexibility to, if one goes out of business, to keep it at 2 then at that point. So that was the discussion. I appreciate those comments. Thank you.
No more than 2 plus an additional for every.
Everybody's in business is trying to fix them sometimes.
That's competition. Yeah, that's what it's all about.
It's no fun.
But it's insane. The way I'm reading it is there could be like 5. Because we're allowing 2 plus every 25,000 residents, you can have more. You can have.
You could add for every 25,000.
Yeah,
Once you
so-
go to another
But does it
25,000.
say,
I think that's
there's a gray area?
probably not how it was written.
I know the intention, but to me, it looks like.
Oh, I see what you're saying,
can allow
plus an
5.
additional permit. So 2 plus,
every
you're right, it
25,000
could be up to
residents.
4. I see what you're
That's
saying.
what-
I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
But you have, but it also says
Council
that you
could
don't
say-
have to.
Right, at the end of the day,
Right.
we don't have to, but it was just.
25,000 was arbitrary to begin with, right? So.
Right, but what his point is it's 2 plus 2 for every 25.
So technically, couldn't we make a claim that there could be a
Right.
4th one?
Right,
I remember there was something that bothered me about the language.
yeah. Well, and it's because now we're over 50.
Right,
So,
which would trigger a 4th.
yeah,
Well, we could change the population or change the
That's what I-
language.
so we can change it. So maybe we should change it. I mean, that's
Well,
fine.
We should make it
feedback
clearer.
already.
I think we should make it clearer because the original intent wasn't to have 5 or 10 of them,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
And so I think we go back to the original
Well,
intent.
it always comes down back to us, but I think if we put in a more, to me at least, clarified languages. I think there's some issues some members of the community and council have with this type of business. However, it's not a 0 tolerance, but we also don't want this to oversaturate the community where it's
Yeah.
no longer lucrative for those that are in the business.
Okay, so consider a cap on 3. we're back to that.
And the original intent was to reduce crime and all those other things too, so we don't wanna get too far off the original intent. So I like the idea that we clean up the language.
Okay.
I agree with Councilman Beltran on that.
Would the committee like me to restate the recommendation, or are we clear and take a vote?
I think it's pretty clear. Yeah.
I think it's good, I think it's direction, because it's coming back to the committee again.
Yeah.
First, yeah.
Yeah.
I think if we're gonna do a recommendation to council, then we wanna make sure we have an action to refer to them, but here, since it's coming back to the committee, I think they can just give this direction.
Now, in number two, just for clarification, 1853 and 1854 to include is the discussion.
Yeah,
That's not, we're having a separate discussion on those same items. Okay.
I know, there was comment regarding, next month, is there some flexibility that as soon as, I'm not sure how much Julia needs to look into. I know there was a comment, contacting others for their policies, but is there some flexibility? 60 days, if it takes us that long, we'll try definitely to speed it up, but are we committed to meeting?
Well, I don't know how long it would take. I would assume 30 days, but if you need a little more legal
I think
time.
30 days is fine.
Then a month.
So with the zoning ordinance, do you guys want to consider where you want to put it? Put these, or is it, I mean, because you were
I think
talking
it's
about downtown, huh?
No, I think it's separate because
Okay.
Raymond's making a good point, saying that it needs to be all
Okay,
in all.
Do we need a vote? on that?
No. It was just direction, right?
yeah,
Direction? Okay. Move on to item number 3. That's okay. And it's a review of the proposed amendments to the development agreement for the cannabis dispensary. Garrett had spoken about fine line, and he had brought up, would like the committee to discuss 2 things. One, the annual fees, and the second is the security plans for dispensaries. The first, maybe we'll start with the annual fees. My understanding as written, it's 1%, or capped at $30,000 for annual fees. Because it's a tough
It's a
business.
minimum, right? 30,000 or 1%, whichever one is
my
regular.
understanding.
I needed the actual agreement.
It's a minimum of 30,000.
agreement for us.
I have it
Yeah.
in here. I just know what page it would be on.
So I think this is, an area that, right now it's either or, but it's a minimum of 30,000, and with potentially a down year, having that minimum of 30,000.
Fees and taxes, I don't know if that's what you're looking for.
I'm looking for just the
Put a,
fee part, yeah.
could have some stress on the dispensary, so meeting that minimum 30,000 annually with fees.
So you're not talking about the actual tax they're remitting to us, the
Yes,
regulatory
it's
tax, you're talking about the
the
actual
annual
fee.
The annual. And what are they looking for, or what is the input from them?
I think the desire from Mr. Garrett, he proposed just, the 1%. And not setting a minimum.
Whatever the less it is.
Well, ballparking that, I mean, what's the difference? What would 1% be?
$1,000 a quarter.
So it's about 16 then. So it'd be cutting it in half.
I'd like to see the actual, you don't have a printout of the financial.
We didn't have that, but that's
Yeah.
the direction.
Right. And that could come up in our meeting next month, just if we can get the financials on them.
I think I would just make a statement that I think that it seems like it's still in the ballpark, even though it seems maybe like a tall hill to climb for each dispensary. I think that it's still in the ballpark. So I think it depends on the market, and the market is not as lucrative as it was expected to be. Should we increase it from 1% to 2%? Should we leave it at 1%? Or keep the 30,000? I mean, that's to give us the balance. So I'm not convinced we need to change it. I understand the situation that's before us, but I think I'm okay with moving it forward, continue discussion, but I'm not for changing it at this time.
I think, great points. I think going forward and when we come back and review some of the requests to amend some of these ordinances, that if these moves with council moves to be, I wouldn't say business friendly, but just go with those recommendations that are being asked, that would improve that situation. Time will tell.
Lisa, do you have where the fee is? I'm just trying to confirm it. It's actually, the agreement just refers to the permit fee as adopted by the ordinance, which I think we then adopted by resolution.
I thought.
It's not in here, because all it's in
Are those
here,
both agreements? Because there's another one in there. I don't know if they're both just the agreements from the last.
well, because this one just talks about the tax, which is 7%.
But I thought I had an original ordinance for dispensary.
Yeah.
Found it in the development.
Yeah, I thought I had it.
Yeah, I know. This must be, I think this is just maybe it's an older version of it. So sorry,
No, that's fine.
it's confusing when we have development agreement adopted by ordinance and then the agreement itself. So when I asked Fernando to credit the ordinance, I need to do that.
Yeah. My understanding, at least on the annual fees, is that, we'll bring back with the financials for further discussion.
Yeah, that would be good.
You're right. There is definitely, I know what you're talking about because I remember the flat amount. It was a minimum of the 30 grand or the percentage of the, but that we need to find. So.
Well, at the time it was written, that's what we want to review if it's meeting the expectations
Yeah.
for the original intent.
Well, here's just, gonna chime in a minute, or am I allowed to, or no? Okay, here's kind of the differences, like we pay that fee every 30 days, every 90 days. And if it was at 1%, it's either, well, let's just use a yearly amount. If it's a yearly amount, that's $30,000 or 1%, whichever is greater. That 1%, we're paying about
Thank you.
double the amount. Because we're being that. We have
Something
to
recorded.
no matter.
Huh?
It's the.
Well, every quarter we're sending in $7,500. If it really was the 1%, we'd be only sending in, what, about 3,500 or something like that? About 3,500. And we're already paying a big fee, 15,000 a year for the permit itself to have the permit.
That's.
That's what I was.
You knew that going in.
Oh, I understand that,
Yeah.
but I'm saying that.
Yeah, I found it in my stuff.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, it was in here.
It is, it's just, I wasn't, it was.
I know, there's a lot. I know.
I think
There it is.
personally, I think the expectation as I read it was that it's $30,000 for an annual. And then if it grows, then it would actually, you would pay more as an annual because it would be old. I think that was the original intent. So I know that we're below that and I know there's a hardship conversation about that, but
Yeah,
the way it's written, it just looks like
it was
it's gonna be.
believed that the 1% was gonna be more.
Correct,
You're right.
right.
The 30,000 was just that, well, just in case it's not kind of thing.
Well,
Yeah.
And that goes back to me, a little bit of the mishap with when the past councils approved the first dispensary and then the second dispensary, then that pie got cut up even smaller pieces. So originally, if there was only one dispensary, that would have been a bigger number. If it was two dispensaries,
Right.
they can meet that 1%. Now it's in thirds. That made it harder for, unfortunately, the last person to the trough. Like,
I think they're struggling. I talk to the other two all the time. They're same way. They're,
well, it's because of the black market, unfortunately.
well,
That's the
I think
biggest.
you gotta make some changes with that as far as human being able to deliver into Porterville. And I think the police department's doing a good job of shutting a lot of the black markets down. That helps a little bit at a time. But right now, I think if you were to have all the three dispensaries in here, they'd be saying the same thing, to pay that extra $16,000 fee every year. It's pretty hard nut to crack.
Do we know what we're getting from the tax side?
It's been a while since I've gotten that.
I didn't get that.
Yeah, I think it would be good to know, like.
We need to look at the numbers. We can add, we got the framework here, the discussion, but we really need to see what they look like and see if it needs to be changed.
Yeah.
Now that we've operated, right? So how long has Have you guys been in operation?
A little over here.
Yeah, so we're going on year 2.
Yeah.
And now we can see if the rubber meets the road, right?
The second topic is kind of more on the line with under hardship is regarding security plans, and I'll let Julia talk a little bit more, but and Mr. Garrett might have some.
I think I've run I think I've run this one to ground now. So, okay, so under state law, it's regulated, highly regulated. So, and it doesn't matter whether it's, like I said before, it's either if it's a storefront retail dispensary, then they have to have either a directly employed or contracted security guard, and they have to be certified through the BSIS, the Bureau of Security and Investigative Services, or something to that effect. So, but there are 2 different sections, as I just noted. So one is for the requirements for privately contracted, and there's one for a directly employed. So you are able to directly employ your own, and we can certainly I think we've already made that change in the proposal. We haven't made it in, if the location stays the same, then we would need to change it for that development agreement. But right now, what I did is I already made the change potentially for the new location, should that go in. And it would, because all we did is we didn't really have very specific requirements in there, other than it did say that we had to contract for, so we've just added that you could employ or contract. It's that simple. It's a very simple change. It's not in our ordinance. Our ordinance just says it has to be by law, like whatever's required by law. So we have already not, I don't think we need to go back and change anything in the ordinance, so to speak, but we do need to make changes to the development agreements for those that, if we're going to allow that for everybody. Because right now, I think it just says we're requiring that they contract, but I don't think we really care. I think the intent was that we just wanted to make sure they were following the law. So, and so as far as how that all works, I know the Vice Mayor provided some information to me, that looked like it was for the private side, like for when you're gonna work for a security company specifically. So that makes me think it's more the private security, not the proprietary. So there's probably a parallel something for the BSIS, because there's a whole section of business and profession codes on it for what it's worth. So, anyways,
The technicality is it's still BSIS.
Yes.
That's the technicality.
Yeah.
And so if there's a way through that process with it.
There's not, it's in the statute. The statute says, I mean, it's one of those things where, speaking of proprietary, they have a proprietary, it's like you have to have their certification. And the state is requiring that. And it's not even just for something, I mean, they will potentially discipline you in your license is in jeopardy through the state if you don't follow those requirements. So it's pretty clear. So
we don't have the ability to weigh in on that in any way, except I think the
we can be
discussion.
more strict, but we can't be any less strict than
Can't
what's
be
required.
less.
Yeah.
So the discussion moved from applying this to all the existing dispensaries to keeping the ordinance where it says it's okay to do that as long as it follows the law. That's where we
The
were.
ordinance is already there. We never had to make a change at the ordinance. It's in our development agreement that we would need to make the change, because that's where we got specific. And I believe in there, we said you're gonna contract for security.
My brain went to a place where I wanted to ask a question, maybe of law enforcement that we have here today, and that is, if we have language by site in each individual development agreement, then there could be a separate security language for each location and each.
They can,
dispensary.
I don't know that Haven or Culture Cannabis has any desire at all they may not care about this change. Because if they're just already contracting with somebody and they have no desire to directly employ somebody, they may not care. This
So
can
it
be
doesn't,
specific.
right, so it doesn't require them to change, but if you have one that wants to have.
But if they wanted to, we can make that amendment. I think that's the thing. Do we want, I mean, we can offer and try to be, because every time we take these, they go, development agreements have to be, by law, they have to be adopted by ordinance. So we have to take them for public hearing when we take them. So, if they want, sometimes it's easier to consolidate decision-making so that you don't have to keep taking it back and back.
But as written and approved today, we wouldn't have to even change the individual agreements to
Well,
comply with the security.
so, for Mr. Garrett's, if they want to employ, we need to make a change to his, because it does say you have to contract for it.
Okay.
And I think that the better way to put that is in my, my recommendation would be, why are we, if we don't care, then why are we putting that in the agreement? Let's just say that they have to follow the state law and leave it at that. Frankly, I'd rather just say they follow state law, and that way if the state law changes and gets easier, we don't have to go back and make a change because ours is still allowed to be stricter, right? So.
And that's the maximum that we could do, so we wouldn't be more restrictive.
No.
We would be.
You just simply say you gotta follow the state law requirements that are, and we're good with either way.
I would recommend that be the language change.
Yeah.
Because that gives us the most flexibility and it keeps the process intact in all the other aspects. That would be my recommendation.
My only question is, there was a statement saying that there was having issues with employees being able to qualify. Could you specify what they're having issues qualifying for in that license requirement for security?
Oh, no, that was, like if you were to open up a whole complete corporation security firm. Like open up.
Yeah,
a
you
firm.
don't have to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So you're
That's what
following,
we looked at.
Okay,
Listen,
so-
essentially, we looked.
So that's why the other option. Okay,
Right.
I was trying to figure
yeah,
out.
let me.
I was like, you have to go through a very thorough background check. So I was like, what was triggering them
Yeah.
not being able to?
Okay, so what the law says specifically is all security personnel hired or contracted for by the licensee shall be licensed by the BSIS and shall comply with chapters 11.4 and 11.5 of Division 3 of the Business Professions Code. Those are important for you guys, 11.4, 11.5. I think 11.4 is privately contracted, is what you're talking about, then 11.5, it may be the other way, but one of them is one of the other.
Yeah.
The other one is like when you want to do the proprietary thing where you're going to have a security guard that is employed by you. So hopefully, and I've not looked at those regulations, so I can't attest to it, but I would hope it would be it should be theoretically way easier than, I don't think because I looked at the same thing when I first looked at them, like, why are they requiring this? When if you go and look at that, there was a link, you probably need some information on like how you get registered.
Mhm.
It clearly applied to those when you're working through a private security firm.
Yeah.
And so, but there's a whole nother section, and I know the BSIS has it on their site. So if you follow the proprietary, hopefully that is an easier path to what you're
Right.
wanting to do. But I don't know, I can't promise you that it is, but
Yeah.
it should be.
I'm hoping to.
Yeah.
no, it is. I've had a lot of conversation with the cannabis control girl on security.
Yeah. Okay, well, good.
Were
They would know way better than
We could open up a corporation and do security for all of
We tried.
We tried.
We tried.
Not even.
them. You guys are very innovative. I like it.
I imagine the other dispensaries were aware of this meeting.
It's totally noticed, right?
Yeah.
Why?
I don't know.
I don't know, if specifically reached out to you.
I haven't talked to
Be them
them,
aware.
I think that it's a good point, and for next meeting, because there could be some uniform.
Well, it will help us, because then we
Changes.
can keep running back
Yeah.
to make changes.
Yeah.
We'll reach
just-
out to all.
I didn't know if it seems a lot of the work that we're doing is specific to one dispensary versus
No,
the
they're,
others,
I've talked to, I've had a lot of conversation with Johnny at Haven.
but he's not communicating with city manager if there's issues. So I'm like,
I mean, that would be up to him. It's his business, but he's
right,
aware.
so,
We'll make a point. that
Okay.
they're-
Just so we don't run into any
Right.
snags, right?
Yep.
Because highly regulated and we don't want to have any surprises.
So item number 3, we're gonna bring back just for the annual fee discussion. We'll get the financials from each of the dispensaries. We'll update the development agreements to follow the state law requirement language only. And then we'll also bring back more information regarding the sales tax revenues. Yeah. Good direction there. The final item on the agenda is to review and discuss the community benefit grant program. Staff has presented a worksheet where they've broken out the small business and nonprofit grant applications, and I'll turn the time over to Claudia, our Community Development Director, and also.
Yeah, so, basically you have the chart that we have the small businesses on top and the nonprofits at the bottom. The way the regulations were is that the nonprofits have a window. That window expired, so this is what we got. It didn't meet, they didn't expend all the funds per se because that's all the applications we got. and you'll see some are incomplete or they withdrew, et cetera. And then the business ones, that's a year-round application, the way it was set up. So you'll see that even as early as late as last week, we still got one more application. And that one does exceed, if you would fund them all, it exceeds that. So before you is, basically, we'd like to get direction to get these funded. But also there's some clarification points for future rounds, or even this one. Because, as you see, they keep coming in, so then we would have to continue coming back to you and figuring out how often do you want to meet to approve the year-round ones. So we'd like to see, one of the, suggestions is to have them both be windows, like the nonprofit ones, so that we're able to, move through them and give them a concise response of the timeline that they would have to be approved as well.
Maybe kind of like some updated grant guidelines that staff can follow.
Yeah, so those were the two things, but, and also if there is, in the documentation that they have to then provide that they did use it for the items that they requested it for, it says that they have 90 days to provide receipts. That's also something that we'd like to discuss just from our experience of working with normal loans and grants. When it is a grant, we don't see a lot of complaints of people trying to then bring us back the receipts. It's harder. We really use a lot of staff time to get that documentation. So we wanted to see if we could either shorten that time frame of providing those receipts, or do a reimbursement model if that works better. And that's just suggestions. You don't have to,
So it's written
Thank
today
you
as
for that.
90 days.
mhm.
Why don't we write it as once completed, but it has to be completed within a certain amount of time? And then put the onus on them, but then it gives them the flexibility to do it more than 90 days or less than 90 days. It's in the completion of the project. And that's when it's due. But it needs to be done within a year. I think we would do something like that. That's my thought process on that. Because I understand that it's taking time to get it, but the onus is on them. And then I think that is there any penalty, or what would be the penalty if
So
for
what we-
non-compliance?
So what we've done with our program for micro enterprise, for example, it's a forgivable loan. So there's still a loan portion to it. And then once they provide all the receipts and everything, then it gets forgiven. So it's basically a grant. But there's more of that responsibility. This is a loan, and if you don't comply with all the documentations, you need to pay it back.
Okay,
So there's a little bit more
I
enforcement so
like
that we
that.
can be able to meet our requirements for the grants. But because this is different, it's not a grant based, it comes out of the tax and
so you're thinking 90 days is great, but keep it pressure on them to get their project done as soon as they get the money.
right, because then we can have a clean slate. We're on to the next round of
Right,
applicants.
I like that too. So it's not written that way today?
So right now it says they have 90 days
Uh-huh.
to turn it in, but there's no clarification as to what happens if they don't meet the 90 days.
So would that have to be initiated in the original application as part of their agreement?
Right,
For
so
future agreements?
for future ones. This
Right.
one, it's what it is because they've already applied with those rules. Unless we make an amendment and we let them know, hey, yes, but we're making.
I think we make the
so-
amendment and tell them that we are making this change, and then it's retroactive because, it's in good faith. They're gonna get it done. We're not trying to penalize them, we're just
Right.
trying to get compliance. What do you think?
No, I like that feedback because you guys are the ones that have to deal with the applications and the paperwork. So to give a little bit of teeth to whether it's I'm just, so some of these, as I'm reading through what the requests are, there's some that are for like paint and some things that they can just go down and buy. Some other ones are like for commercial refrigerator, certain things that maybe there's a lead time for some of the things to get. So I don't like it open-ended, so I don't know if a year that from the time that this was granted that it's completed, I think a year's a long time.
It is a long time.
Open-ended.
Especially when it's implied that it's something they need now. Why are we waiting a year to do it?
Right,
I got
right. There's some things out of their control, but
And with current grants, when there is an issue like that, we usually give them an extension, but it's a case by case. Okay, well,
Okay.
either showing proof, due diligence, that they've tried, they have the quotes, they haven't received it yet.
Right.
So there's that communication. So there is leeway to extend the time frame because the timeframe really is to help, expedite the funds and help them get it and all that. If you did reimbursement, they'd have to put on the credit card. So we're trying to alleviate that by making it, turning the receipts afterwards, and I think that was the intent of the original guidelines. But now as we're gonna fund these, then now it's, okay, so if they don't turn it in, then how do we, what happens?
Vice Mayor, how do you like the language of that? If their part isn't complete within, I don't know what that time frame would be, 6 months or what, that it is a payback loan?
No, I think we should do that.
Yeah, okay.
I think that's an automatic and we should do
We're on the
that.
same page for that.
No matter what that time frame is, once we set it, that's the teeth that says you're gonna comply or you're gonna pay the money back.
When is the start date? Is it the day the city approves the application?
Maybe
What triggers that?
like they sign a document that they
Yeah,
agree to
usually
the
it's
terms
upon
and
award.
conditions.
So we, our
Right.
current loans is upon award, so when we have the loan committee that chooses, so from that day, we were able to then fund them within the next couple of days, it's upon award.
As a condition of funding, we should have those
Mhm.
petitions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if they're buying, if they're buying a resource here, they should be able to provide a receipt for 90 days,
Right.
even if it's on back. Right?
Mhm.
So I think 90 days is still good, and I think we add the teeth. These are great recommendations, Claudia.
We'll work on updating the terms and conditions and kind of the grant guidelines for moving forward. So there's kind of two things. One, we want to establish more clear direction on the grant guidelines as far as time frame of when you can submit an application, but also the terms and conditions
Right.
for
So-
accepting.
That was the other part is there's a revolving open door for this. It's not, I wonder if we should,
That's written right now.
yeah, because that's what we did, I think, with the nonprofit one, is there was a window of like 3 months or something and that was closed.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
that, do you think it goes to the next year then?
Yeah, because there's just not enough funds
I think that
to,
makes sense.
And there might be, because this is the funds that as of last year.
Yeah.
So we might have more funds, but we haven't gotten the response yet as to what that looks like. So I'm sure that there's more funds because now it's been a year since this amount was given. So we could do a second window just to catch up, or we can wait till the next window opens up for nonprofits. So or we can do it, quarterly as funds are available. But just having more consistency of when someone applies, so when will I get funded? That question is like, well, whenever we get it before the committee or, so it's having like, well, now it's this, we have to get it done by this time because the new cycle will start at this time. So it kind of gives us a little bit more structure
yeah.
as well.
The cycle is based on our annual budget, right?
Correct.
So I like the idea that you're suggesting that we only do it once a year, first come, first serve, and then if you have any unused funds that carry to the next year, but you give them just a
And
window.
what was the window? Was it 3 months, I think?
For the
You
nonprofit.
remember?
That said, a window?
April, June.
Better time.
So I think June's like 2 months, it's
2 months.
maybe 60 days. Well, we could do a 90.
I think
days.
that was at the time, it was approved by council in March. And we were given direction to, to try to get it going. So we could always have a longer window if we're gonna, I think
want to
it
do
was
a
just
90-day
this
window?
time.
90 days sounds good to me.
Yeah, and then,
Standard.
so the loans are basically first come, first served, and the nonprofits are lottery.
Right,
So that's another
I remember that.
thing to consider is, do we want to be consistent with both, or you guys are still okay with that?
Maybe the amount requested, right? It's kind of varying for the profits. Do you want to cap it?
Well, there is I thought there
There's
was.
a cap, they just always,
It's 5.
they
There's-
request.
You can tell what the cap is.
Yeah, the cap is 5 and it's coming up the first time. But everyone kind of tries to request more than needed in case they can get more.
Okay, more on policy, Vice Mayor, some of the things I highlighted that concern me that I have an issue with, and I'd like to maybe clean up the language if you're in agreement, is I don't like some of these requests that says use and purpose is for like rent and payroll. I have a big concern with these funds are going towards that. One of them says payroll and working capital, which
It's too big.
yeah, and are they paying themselves? Did they give themselves a raise?
Well, it looks like an ARPA fund. We're not doing that.
well, and that goes back to, rent, utilities.
The operation comes.
Those are a little more concerning than we needed, lighting or internet or, I don't know. To me, I don't know if in our language that we kind of carved out, this can't be used for, payroll. I don't think we specified.
I think, does it say operations? Operation, I think includes.
I think it was the nonprofit grants that had
Yeah.
operation.
Okay.
The nonprofit was a little more specific, but now the small business, because
Purchase
you're
of equipment is
allowed.
allowed for
Small.
both of them, I think,
Yeah.
but we could always, again, that's why we're bringing this to the committee, so.
So some of the small business ones, the early comments or direction was kind of, we were hoping this would be more used for signage. We thought that was the past city manager Ridnour said that was a big ask, and I noticed not one of these was for signs. And so it wasn't specific to signs, but we thought that was what we used for. So I don't know if we want to clean up the small business part of it. That
Oh,
not
actually,
allowing.
you did have one for sign, the Tulare River Parkway Association.
That's under nonprofits.
That was on the side,
Oh, and
the small
Yeah,
business
so
one.
here are the application occurring list facade improvements,
Kathy heard you.
such as signage, awning, or window replacements and lighting, purchase of equipment, ADA improvement, and code violation remediations within the facade of the building. So that was kind of the intent to help businesses look nicer,
Right.
so that can attract more and.
Curb appeal.
So
Yeah,
paint,
curb.
windows, concrete, and.
These are all local too, right?
Yeah, that's something they have to have a city business license,
Okay.
yeah.
City business license. Well, my thought on this is, I tend to agree with the comments here, is that now we have data. Now we see what they're asking for. Now it's time to review it. Now let's refine it for the following year. Let's make some lessons learned here and maybe create a new filter or update the filter we have. That's, I think.
Yeah, because if it wasn't allowed, it doesn't have to be granted, like we can
Correct.
actually, so these are the guidelines, and I don't know if you have a copy of it or not. But, those are the guidelines that they have to abide by. They don't always request exactly what is on the guidelines, so we have to work with them, say,
Kind of vague.
this is not a valid request, and so we wanted to bring it to you though first, so you can, before we go back and have those conversations, like, well, actually, that's still not allowed, and.
And I'm being mindful of that because I know I've heard on the other end where residents come in and they complain, well, they were told two different things. So I don't want you to have to go back and after you work with somebody, say, well, that wasn't approved after all.
Mhm.
So we might just going forward, change it, but these ones just as is, we didn't. That's
As long as
what it
they're
was.
not way out of bounds here, I think there's some concerns about the bailout.
But we could fix it on the next.
Right.
Or I don't know if going forward, we could give this to city council to vote on that. We would like to change the language for.
I think that's a good
No
idea.
payroll. What's another one?
Rent, utility.
Rent utility. What is it called? What,
Operations.
Operations.
Working capitals a little bit.
Yeah. How do you feel about that?
No, I agree.
We'll draft the amendments to the guidelines. That word, is there any?
Did we address everything that you?
Yeah, I believe so. We sent it to catch everything. I
I
know they're the ones that work diligently
I know.
on all the applications.
I want to make sure we address the
Yeah.
things that you brought up.
we also had, I don't know, the ineligibility period or the window.
Oh, like if they can reapply?
You are awarded, if there's a period of time that you would not apply again for another award, just because this is like, the funding will it'll be continuing.
And they don't get it every year.
They don't get it every year, like if, they're ineligible for like a period of 3 to 5 years, something like that, whatever is recommended.
Maybe
but-
you're only, if you,
Or it could be a one and done situation as well, but we just.
I
want
like
to be
the idea
clear.
of this limit because if you say, well, I was able to get 5,000 this year, but I'm only allowed to get 5,000 once every 3 years, then I can apply again in 3 years. So that keeps everybody from going in every year.
Yeah, so if it's first come, first serve, and I already did my application last year, I know exactly what I need.
Yes,
So
I
I'm
already
gonna-
wrote it up. I'm ready for the next.
I'm ready for the next
The date
year
comes.
and day one, I'm gonna have it in there.
Well,
Whereas the new loans would have a little more
Right.
trouble.
maybe some flexibility on the nonprofit. I could see that for the small business, but the nonprofit, there's. From
Prices
this
on
working,
one.
right,
I'm shocked at that.
I would've
I kind of
thought
feel like.
But it was a lottery, so some people didn't get,
No, this is, we don't decide on the lottery. This is all the applications we
that's
got.
all.
It was.
I think it could
I
have played into it's end of year, everyone's trying to wrap up all their grants, because it was April through June. So that could have played
Oh,
into
okay.
their
So
fiscal
they
year.
missed the window.
Yeah, they.
Next
could've-
year is gonna be
yeah.
bigger.
It
They're
could be.
Well, if we had exceeded the amount that we had available for funding, we could have did the lottery today. If that was
I
the
think that
case,
was-
and then those could have been recommended
Backstop.
for funding to the council.
Mhm.
But we did not have, more applications than there was funding, so that did not play a factor.
So I think going back to what their comment was, that was a little bit of the back and forth we were discussing was if somebody asked for the full 5,000 and were granted that they'd be exempt for a number of years. We didn't set a number of years, but we thought that would be a good process. But the other thing is that if they had asked for half, let's say 2,500, they could do it every year. Because it'll open up opportunity for others to join.
So maximum of 5,000 every
Maximum
3
5,000. But if
years.
they only ask for 2,500, they could ask.
They could ask every year,
Up to that $5,000.
up to 5,000. I like the 3-year threshold.
No more than
Was
five
that
thousand
for
every
just
3 years.
the
basically.
business or the nonprofits as well?
And let's be consistent, maybe it's the same.
I just maybe highlight the barn theater needing significant repairs and
That one's been on my
That's it.
mind for a while, but
yeah.
Well, this, I don't want to interrupt, go ahead.
Well, my thing was, a lot of these are, bads. Parkway, Sierra View, Kiwanis, Family Crisis, Barn Theater, even Community Art Center. Chamber kind of bugged me a little bit. But anyhow, these give back a lot in the community. So I would hate to exempt them for 3 years. But maybe every other. So, because I know some of these hurt for funding, and I'd hate for them to get something and just say, well, we're not for a while. As long as there's funding.
So you're saying 2 years?
Yeah, just like every, a one-off, one year exemption after. For the allotted amount like that.
Unless it's below, right?
Unless it's below, but I don't want to be like, oh, they're asking for 4,000, so, but mine was like a 2,500. You want to ask 2,500 for perpetuity, you're good. You're trying to share.
That's the point. We want to make sure other people have an
Well, and if
opportunity.
you keep seeing that you're not spending your money every year, then maybe you just, then you can just, but it's only been a couple, what,
It's
1,
first
2 years,
This
it's
is
first
the
year.
first
So yeah, you don't know, if
round.
this is just a one-off
I'm
or you
thinking
have
next year
money left
might-
over. Yeah.
Might happen.
Does the committee want flexibility in awarding higher than the flat 5,000 or at your discretion?
I'm afraid to go over. I think the Barn Theater is a great example of where they need the money, but it's unique.
But even if you were to do 10,000, it's still not gonna be anywhere near what they're
No.
asking for.
And so I think that's a different kind of an issue. So it's like it's an outlier. you
But
would
again,
say,
they can ask-
statistics.
They can ask for the next 10 years and
Right.
get half that money.
Yeah.
So it's not slamming the door on an organization. What are we gonna do with we have the heart, like, for example, on the nonprofit, there's a lot of issue that I think this shows you the difference between businesses that have somebody that works the books
Yeah.
and nonprofits that have a volunteer or somebody who's not used to doing.
Yeah.
There's a lot of issues with the nonprofit side of paperwork. And I think that goes to why there's not as many. Do we want to, since they apply, do we want to keep an open door for those nonprofits? Or once the deadline is passed, we're not going to do any grace period for them? I know it's a lot of work for staff to keep helping them and keep helping them. I don't want to put a burden where our staff is kind of doing it all for them.
The money is available, so if we didn't use it, we'd move it to the next year. We no sense in doing all of the back and forth all the year to try to get people to take the money. Just move it
And
to the
our
next
staff
year.
does provide them guidance on how to get there. So they have the guidance, now they just have to work on it, right? And so right now, we would be just following up and following up and following up and.
But the kind of status notes that you guys provided, was that like, hey, do you guys want us to still deal with these, or is it like?
Well, yeah, this was so that you knew why they were submitted, because this is everyone that submitted. So whether it was incomplete or why they were either not on here as available to basically be granted because they don't have a complete application. Or, why they were not gonna be funded if they asked later, it's like, oh, because we received it after the deadline.
Right.
Or it was incomplete and this is why. So it was more informational,
Okay.
so you were aware that they did apply. We got all these applications and we worked through them and with them, but not all of them will always go through.
So like the NJB that says incomplete, then that's door shut. They're not gonna come back in 2 months and say, hey, can I still get the funding?
Right, they understood the deadline as
That's it,
well,
okay.
and they're working through that to be ready
For
for
next year.
future ones, yeah.
So there might be a clarifying on the chamber here too, because the chamber already receives a significant amount of grant money from the city, right? Is there a limitation on
I
that?
don't think
Is
we
that-
give them any more money. We don't give them
That
money
they
anymore.
rejected the city's.
Yeah, we used to give them 30,000, but we no longer give them
When did we stop doing that?
a year or so ago.
Mhm.
A year, maybe, yeah, about a year ago.
So we-
There was some,
2 years ago.
yeah,
Maybe
there
it
was
a little bit longer.
It's been a
longer.
while.
So we're not-
requirements.
So there's no double dip there then? So we don't provide any grant money to the.
So the grant funding that they
No.
do get, it's not a grant, it's a contracted for Mighty 190.
Okay,
They're the ones that kind of set up the meetings and help
Okay.
with ordering so they are, they have a small amount from the Mighty 190 to help run that.
right, we talked about that in Mighty 190, meeting. I think it's like $37,000.
No, I think it's 10.
It's 10. Okay, the number.
I think 37 was
From the
one of the
city?
balances.
From the city specifically?
Not from the,
Oh.
it's from the Mighty 190 budget,
Oh,
wherever that came from.
Alright.
Okay,
It was like TCAG and a little bit of city.
There's some TCAG, some city, some ARPA.
so we used to give them money and now they're asking us to get grant money and they're getting it here, so it's not, they're not getting it in two places.
No.
All right, just wanted to make sure, explore that. I did great discussion.
Does the committee have a recommendation on maybe the small business as far as bringing to council some awards?
Are you okay with approving the list there?
I did want to note that we do have, at the time it went to council, at least we were told that there was $32,953 available, which you'll see we exceeded that amount in our request. The numbers to the left, they're in the order that they were received, but the date completed would then be another order.
Two separate.
Yeah, so if it would just depend if the committee wanted to recommend funding for 6, which would be 30,000. I don't know if there would be like a partial funding of a 7, or if you would just want to do the 6 and just have the
Carried over.
carried over. Like I said, we said there could be additional funds available, but we don't know that number from finance.
So it's only through number 6?
No, it would
you can
be,
pick-
it depends.
Oh, you
If we're
can
going off of
pick
the date they're completed, the applications were completed, because we did receive some that were submitted but were incomplete. And because it was first come, first served, we
Go
did
with those that are
document, we did
completed
document
ones,
when, but
especially
we should go off of the completed date, actually. I've made a note of their order, but
Yeah, because not where you started, it's where you finished.
yes. And I think that was one of the things we noticed as we were working through it. It was like, we'll make sure we document when they were turned it in and what order they were received in, because these are supposed to be awarded on a first come, first served. But then going through the process of them completing the application, it was like they weren't all completed.
It needs to be the
Submitted.
first completed ones to
Yes.
really truly.
So I went
otherwise
ahead and made a
yeah.
note as I was waiting for the site to come up of which 6 were completed first.
And then number 14, as of this morning, it seems to now be complete as well, but it needs the secondary review. But it looks like it also may have everything.
So would those then become automatically next year unless we do them this year then? Because now they're in for next year?
Yeah, so that's what we would need clarification as to if there is more funding, once we connect with Janie and figure out that, because this is last year's number. If now this year, now it's been a couple more quarters, if there is enough to fund them all, would we have them reapply again next year, or we would just go ahead and grant them with whatever there?
I understand better now. So if we go by the date completed, I mean, make sure I'm saying, thinking about this right. If we go by the date completed, only some of these qualify. And that's probably the best way to do it. And we don't just say they were outside the window, so they qualify for next year. We're not gonna do that. You gotta apply again. That's how I think about it.
Based on that, 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7, that would be first
1,
6, that
3,
based on completion date,
5, 6,
7,
7.
those would be the 6.
I don't know if this would be an option too, is by date completed, those first 6 be approved. Maybe when we look at the end of the year, say, we're getting there,
Yeah, it's almost April. again.
November,
Yeah,
to see what we've collected, it's quarterly. Is when we.
Yeah.
it's gonna be based on the annual though.
So this was
based
as
on
of
the-
last year's,
Yeah.
yeah.
So
This balance with the, I believe Jamie told me was the end of December. So end of December 2024, this was the amount.
So I wonder if our second meeting, because we skipped the first one in January, our second meeting in January is to see where we're at, because we'll have the financials from December to maybe address the rest of the list in January. However much funds we have to then, because their applications are complete.
But they missed the deadline.
Oh, this is not, so the nonprofits have a deadline,
This is open.
the business is open-ended, and that was one of the,
Okay.
I know it's confusing,
Yeah.
that's why I think it should all be the same.
Sorry, I'm mixing up together.
We were wanting them to be consistent,
Okay.
because it's
Yeah.
a little bit confusing when they're doing.
So next year, they'll be consistent, they'll have the same
Correct.
window, but right now, this list. That would be my recommendation, is that let's look at this in maybe January, February, and check off however many we
Try to
can.
clear the list
Yeah.
of the completed applications that are in this.
That would be my idea.
And then at this point, we would then stop accepting any.
Yeah, and whoever approved, let them know, sorry, we're out of funds, please, your application was approved, so almost reapply, update it. And
Right.
Okay.
I like that. Sorry about confusing.
The ones on this list won't be on that list next year. They won't be competing.
Because we have a new criteria.
we'll bring the first 6, 1, 2, 3, 5, 6,
By
7
date of
council
completion.
for award. And then in January, we'll revisit, we'll have the updated balance. And then the committee can then proceed with making it more awards if they should choose.
If finance is able to get that together, not first in February, whatever finance can put together, even you get this with all the paperwork.
Okay.
Mm.
And the nonprofit side, this is an area where we actually have more money than what's available. It's the desire of the committee to award the completed applications, or
I would say, what was the deadline?
June 30th.
30th.
Or wait, what was it? I'm sorry. I don't want to misspeak, because I didn't.
It looks like it, because the last one was like
June 20th.
June 20th. Oh,
The application window was April 28th through June 20th.
okay. So that's where the chamber's out, because they submitted late.
some of these, like NJB, the Grizzly football, they're just working on a business license or IRS tax extension. Maybe have they been able to, since that period, got a business license?
Yeah, how do you feel, Vice Mayor, about for this one off?
It's a qualification.
Do we want to give a little grace on that for them, or do we want to, since it wasn't completed?
Well, I think
I'll-
because we have money left, we have a room for grace. But I want to be careful that we don't open this up for future.
So I'll comment on that to help you make that
Okay.
decision. So we've had other applicants that inquired about it and they understood the requirements. They never submitted because they didn't get all the requirements in line. So they could say, well, I could have applied and
Right.
didn't complete.
This is what I'm
Fine, you were gonna give
afraid
me
of.
that,
Yeah, so that would be my only,
They could have, but they didn't.
Yeah.
That's the difference.
I know.
That
Should've,
doesn't
could've,
hurt to ask.
Right.
And
So at least for me, just, because there's funding and we are cleaning up the language for next year, maybe,
But
well, let's give them like
something turned away.
again, maybe if we can communicate with them, hey, you have 90 days to finish this from now. If it's not completed, then the door's shut.
It's kind of arbitrary, but.
It is,
I
but
understand.
because I don't want to go, okay, they come back to us, in 120 days, because business license doesn't take 90 days to get.
No.
So,
Tax exempt status can take longer.
And this wasn't as of June 20th, so this has been updated like last week. So in June 20th, they didn't have it and they still don't have it.
that's 60 days.
Yeah, I think we take the red ones off.
Okay, I'm okay with that. But thank you.
And
for
not
the feedback.
because, we don't want to be gracious, but I think.
They're ready for next
We
year.
want to follow the process.
They'll be ready for next year. Okay. So the recommendation is to award all the ones that have completed applications and were approved.
One,
Because we
two,
would have
three.
updated them if they had it. Then you'll notice that Sierra View has a date completed date of August 11th.
Right.
Because there was constant communication and they got what they needed, so.
So just the three, NJD, Chamber, and.
So does that ultimately go to the council? I think it goes to the
Yeah,
council,
go
right?
for it.
So so this is something, so you're gonna recommend it, so you wanna vote to recommend
You
to the
want to
council and then
recommend,
the
yeah.
council will take the final action.
Did you want quantities or what? So I got,
Oh, no, sorry, they're not on there either, because it's not complete.
They had withdrawn theirs
Yeah,
anyways,
it
but,
says withdrawn.
Yeah. but
So sorry, yeah. To approve the nonprofit grants, the ones with the date completed.
1, 2, 3, 6, 7, 8, 9.
Correct. That's
I
my
like
motion.
that.
That's my motion.
I second that motion. Aye.
All in favor?
Aye.
Very good. This now leads to other matters. Is there any other matters that the council or committee would like to discuss or provide direction to staff to bring back at the next meeting?
I don't have any more of the, I think we got a plate full. Does anybody else, like any other staff?
I just have a comment. I think when we started this, we were sunsetting this committee. It looks like we have work to do. So I don't think we're sunsetting this committee.
I didn't see that. Anytime soon.
well, you're a standing committee, so you're good until you decide you don't wanna be in
Okay.
this business anymore.
But we don't have to meet monthly, but we have business, so we're meeting more often. Is that,
Right, you guys can decide, you set your schedule, we just make sure we do 72-hour notice for the meetings.
Might be like quarterly meetings.
I think quarterly,
What might fall after,
but we have action here, so we can meet more often and get that stuff done.
So we just need a date for when you guys, so we already decided that,
Yeah,
like I said.
possibly
30 days if we can get,
end of September.
yeah.
We need an actual date or wait for feedback.
Drew and Julia, do you think
Do you guys-
30 days?
I think we can do it in 30.
We probably can adjust.
Tentatively, 30 days.
So that
Sounds
gives
good.
us, that would be but if you guys want to stick to Monday mornings, I would say then the 29th of September.
That would be okay with me.
That's fine with me.
Again, tentatively.
Okay.
Their business, we'll adjourn the meeting at 10:24.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Appreciate it.